Hello everyone, this is Mr. Informal back with a new thoughts, analysis, and rant. So the dust has finally settled. Apple's event was on September 7th. Uh, the Apple iPhone 14 has been announced with the models of the Pro, the Plus, and the Max. That means that there is no more iPhone 14 mini. So basically, the Apple event basically had the watch, the earbuds or the headphones, and then the phone itself. And then it's definitely, as usual, with Apple talking about every single feature, even though it's irrelevant in an everyday basis. But they have to show something to their loyalists and also to their shareholders. And so, what do I have for these thoughts, analysis, and rant? Well, basically, I'm going to tell you about my thoughts on the Apple iPhone 14 Pro Max, 14 Pro, and the 14 Plus. Well, basically, in terms of this, is my thoughts right now. In terms of design, nothing really different except for that hideous big hole or big oval shaped hole that you see in the front. Even though the 14 Plus keeps the notch, whatever you want to call it. Apple calls it dynamic island. People call it the pill. People call it some kind of black eyesore. I may just call it black hole. Whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. But overall, these are nothing new to me. These are basically the same because looking at the analysis, it uses the same CPU as from the iPhone 13. So nothing really much changed. They say they make it big improvements, but on an everyday basis, again, I don't think these matters. And the funny thing is they don't even talk about call quality. And a lot of reviewers have hyped this phones up for some reason. As you know, if you are apparently bad with Apple, you're blacklisted. But I don't really care about that. So basically to conclude my thoughts, nothing new, same. If you are going to use these features, more power to you. But in terms of a phone itself, nothing revolutionary from my perspective. So that's that. Let's get on with the specs. So what I'll do is Pro Max, Pro, and the Plus. That's how I'll differentiate it. So the Max has 6.7 inches, the Pro 6.1, and the Plus has 6.7. But the difference is that the between the Max and the Plus is the Max has 460 pixel per inch density, while the Plus has 458 pixel per inch density. Again, if you know the history, the Pro and the Pro Max are very similar to each other. Same. It has IP68 dust water resistant. Same CPU as from last year, the A16 Bionic. And here are the storage system. Storage drive. 128 gigs, 6 gigs of RAM, 256, 6 gigs of RAM, 512 and 6 gigs of RAM, and 1 terabyte, 6 gigs of RAM. Basically all the same throughout the Pro and the Plus. But the camera is quite different from the Plus. We got 12 megapixels at 1.5, 26 millimeter wide, and then we do PDAF, and then with OIS, and then 12 megapixels f2.4, your ultra wide 13 millimeters. Only two cameras. For the Pro and the Pro Max, we got 48 megapixels f1.8 with OIS, 12 megapixels f2.8, telephoto 77 millimeters, and then lastly you got 12 megapixels f2.2, 13 millimeters, which is your ultra wide. Not only that, both will come with this thing called action camera. Basically, It's kind of like a GoPro or a gimbal, but it has a huge crop, which is the compromise here. They said they made it 3 times better than previous predecessor, but again, I think it just depends on the lighting. It just depends on the performance. But honestly, I don't think 3 times would be your best number. So in terms of the front camera, on the Plus we got 12 megapixels f1.9, and also the front camera has been upgraded. It finally has autofocus, and this is all the same throughout the range. Also, video features is 4K, 24, 25, 30, 60 frames per second, and then 1080p, 25, 30, 60, 120 frames per second with gyro EIS. See, I'm not a fan of that. I cannot believe that the HTC 10 is the only camera so far that had OIS. Unbelievable. Stereo speakers. And then going back to the front camera, it has the oval shape cutout. Basically, it's a black hole, and it's not really a notch per se, so it's very noticeable, especially when you're watching videos. And then in terms of Wi-Fi, we got Wi-Fi 6 in there. There's also Bluetooth 5G in terms of antenna. Also, the lightning is still USB 2.0. This means there is no USB-C. Can you believe that? There's still no USB-C, even though the iPad has it. Obviously, it has Face ID. The battery on the Max is 4300. The Pro is 3200, while the Plus is 4300. Wow. The Plus may be the value here. So it does have fast charging, certainly. It has MagSafe. It also has wireless charging. And then the colors for the Pro and the Pro Max is black, silver, gold, deep purple. And then for the Plus, we got midnight, purple, starlight, blue, and red. On to the pricing here. Again, depends on the storage system, but it most likely the Max will be at around 17 to 1800. That depends on where you live. The Pro, that's $1,000 to $1,200 depending on where you live. And then the Plus would be 900 to 1,000, again depending on where you live. Internationally, it could be more expensive, and I've said this before. People do not take note about the international prices. The international prices is always expensive. They see as iPhone as a premium product, as compared to here US, we see as iPhone as just whatever type of product that is. In terms of the analysis here, moving on to the analysis, let's talk about market share. Well, for the first few weeks, Apple stock is gonna go up. After that, it's probably gonna go down and then remain steady from there. Now, as a phone itself, is it revolutionary? No. Is it evolutionary? I don't think so. It's more or less the same because of the same CPU. And again, I don't think people are gonna fully utilize all the features on this phone, especially with its prices. So the feature or price ratio is way too divided. I think this phone is overpriced, and I've always said that about iPhone. Always. I think this phone is overpriced, especially the Max, which doesn't make sense to me because people don't even use it to its full capability. And so in terms of the general population, I think that it's just another iPhone release for them. Also, many will not like the black hole that is in front of your screen. Many people would probably prefer the notch, but then again, I was not a fan of the notch, so that's that. I do prefer what Android has, is basically just a circular hole. It's just for the camera, and then that's it. Because the more you use it, the more it disappears. But this time, it is just that. Now, I've seen the kind of software integration for this black hole, but to me, I think people will get used to it, but the fact is that that black hole is still there and it's huge. It is absolutely huge. And I don't know how people can even say this is a great design. Even if you love Bauhaus, this is not a great design. And even if you are minimalistic, this still not is a great design. So again, market share and population, market share is going to go up and it's going to wane down in the future. As for the general population, if you're an Android user, you're not going to switch. There's really nothing to this. And if you still, if you like Apple or you're loyalist, then of course you're gonna stick with Apple. But if you're in between, I do think this time around the S22 got this. Even though I felt like the S22 was underwhelming, and I do like what other Android phones are coming out with, especially with the Nothing phone. So we'll see about that. But in terms of what the market will react to this, it's very similar to previous iPhones. On to the rant. Number one, no USB-C. We're still stuck in the Lightning port that uses USB 2.0 speed. Imagine having to transfer 4K content to your laptop or your computer. Yes, it will take that long of a time. Number two, they destroyed the Mini. That is absolutely too bad. I think the Mini is going to be a hot commodity in the future. For some reason, I do like the Mini just because not everybody has huge hands. Not everybody has huge feet. Same CPU. I know the prices didn't really change much, but again, the international prices have changed, so that is too bad. There's nothing new about this in terms of CPU. It's probably going to run the same. Also, I've seen in some reviews that iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max was actually better in terms of battery life. So that is absolutely too bad. The action mode, you can only use the action mode in the widest angle, and it has a crop. Again, that is absolutely too bad. You don't want to be too close to this. I do like the always on display. This has always on display now, but I cannot believe it took this long. And I'm not gonna say, oh, it's better late than never. No, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not giving anybody a slide here or any excuse. The always on display should have been put since the 11 Pro. And then they say this has a new gyroscope, but honestly, is it really noticeable? Maybe for the action camera, but in everyday basis, you can't really tell. And then lastly, actually there's gonna be two things, okay, but it involves this one design flaw, is that black hole. It's just bad design. Second thing to note that is many reviewers out there, or I shouldn't say reviewers yet, but anybody and many who made videos of this, they said Apple has implemented the black hole very well. They're just hyping this out so they don't get blacklisted. Not only that, it's just bad. I don't understand how they could sit there or stand and say, oh, this is the best implementation out of all the notches, the black holes, or any type of cutout. I mean, really? I mean, they call it Dynamic Island. I mean, number one, that's a lame attempt at marketing. And then number two is that, stop it. I don't know how you could look at yourself with a straight face and act like you're not defending Apple here. Of course you're defending Apple. And, there are a lot of loyalists out there, but again, in terms of front of the smartphones these days, this has to be the worst possible design. I mean, maybe I should just call it a Cyclops, for God's sake. So that's basically it for my rant. So to conclude my thoughts, analysis, and rant of the iPhone 14 Pro Max, 14 Pro, and the 14 Plus by Apple is basically just another phone. Gotta upgrade every year. Even in design wise, is I think is more terrible. As you can tell, they when they the thing is, I just noticed right now is they stop being consistent with their design, and I'll tell you why. The Plus has a notch. The 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max has the black hole. I mean, where's the design consistency here? And people don't realize outside the US is that the prices has gone up, inflation has gone up. And so I don't think the international buyers is going to be able to afford this phone. Even if they could, it would take a while, or even could take a long time for them to even afford this. By the time they could afford this, the iPhone 15 might be coming out already. And so the iPhone 14 to me could be a phone that you could say in the future that is underrated, that was underwhelming, but they got everything right. I mean, that could be the description of the iPhone 14 in the future, but as of right now, it's an underwhelming model. And that's what I said for the 13 too. In any case, that is my thoughts, analysis, and rant of the iPhone 14. I'll see you in the next thoughts, analysis, and rant. Bye-bye.